name is Leslie, and for my capstone project, I am investigating inquiry in the educational system, but more specifically in the science classroom. I myself, as a science teacher, am guilty of not using inquiry in the classroom, and I know a lot of teachers out there say they are, but they're really not. So I'm going to kind of investigate what is inquiry, what can I do to better benefit my students and help me become a better teacher. Okay, why do we need inquiry in the classroom? Inquiry increases those critical thinking skills, not only prevalent in science but math, but in all facets, such as history. History lends itself a lot to inquiry. Kids might ask, where would women be today without Abe Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation back in the 1860s? A turn of events through history led to women's rights with the 19th Amendment in the 1920s, I think. But slaves got rights, and then women got rights, and then American Indians got rights. But what would have happened had Abe Lincoln never signed the Emancipation Proclamation? Would some other president have done it? Where would we be? This is what inquiry is. It's kind of those questions, what ifs. Okay. I'm going to compare the traditional classroom with the inquiry-based classroom. In a traditional classroom, students sit there quietly. They take notes on the board. They raise their hand when they have a question from their teacher or their instructor. And in the inquiry classroom, students do a lot of project-based lessons, which are student-centered. Everything's driven toward the student. A lot of investigations, a lot of hands-on experiments. There's no rote memorization in this setting. Typically, inquiry is not used in the American classroom for many different reasons, but the number one reason is the standardized testing and lack of time. Schools, teachers, administrators, everybody is driven by standardized testing and what the tests show. That's all that matters. Okay? And so every ounce of energy and every bit of time has to be spent on preparing for this test. Okay, an inquiry investigation takes a week or two. You throw out a situation at the kids. They have to come up with a plan. They research some stuff. They come up with a plan to investigate it. How are they going to do it? Then they've got to actually implement the investigation, which takes time. Okay, we don't have this kind of time in the classroom, especially not in the science and math classrooms, not with the material that has to be covered each year. Okay, teachers are not confident enough in their subject matter to lead or guide a classroom discussion. They're not supposed to ask the questions. It's student driven, but at the same time, the teacher has to be able to know the boundaries and where certain questions might lead students to, and kind of ways to get them to focus. And teachers might not have that confidence in their knowledge, especially with people being generalists or whatever. Okay, for a teacher just deciding they want to try to implement some inquiry activities into their classroom, there's hardly any ideas or materials out there. This is all on the teacher's shoulders. It's the teacher being creative. And if they try something and it's a big flop, then they've wasted a week or two, and how likely are they wanting to do that? And when they waste time, kids misbehave, it just leads to a whole slew of problems. Inquiry differs from the way we were taught. Again, the way we were taught, we sat in a chair, we wrote down notes, we raised our hand when we had questions, the teacher lectured. We might have occasionally done a lab or a hands-on activity, but for the most part, it was teacher-centered, and it wasn't very much student-centered. And now inquiry revolves around students. It's not about the teacher. Okay. Also, Teachers are resistant from using inquiry in their classroom because of the huge spectrum of learners they have in their class. They might have some English as a second language kids, they might have some 504 kids, they might have some special ed kids, they might have some GT kids, they might have some high average kids. An inquiry investigation does not lend itself to this huge spectrum of learners because the kids have to work together. And if you put your high kids with your low kids don't do anything and your high kids do it all. And if you put your high kids together, they get something accomplished, but the low kids never get anything accomplished. So how do you group your kids? And this is more of a problem in science and history classrooms than in math and English, because in math and English, those low level kids are pulled out for their inclusion, or for their math on their own, or their reading and English on their own. Whereas history and science get all students. Okay, and the last reason students or teachers might resist inquiry is a lack of administrative support. Inquiry looks like the teacher has no control over the class. The kids are working together, talking, working through things together. They're all on different pages. They're doing different things. It's loud. And some administrators who are old school, they don't typically like to see this in the classroom, especially when they think you should be preparing for a standardized test. Okay. And so in my project, I'm going to look at that as well. Okay. I found through the research some different strategies we can use to implement inquiry. There are several web-based studies out there that colleges have created where they give scenarios and the students have to work through a scenario. And there's been a lot of thought here, and it's not just multiple choice answers, A, B, C, D. If you pick A here, then they give you a question. If you pick B, then they give you a different question. If you pick C, so it's not quite so A, B, C, D. There was an example about a farmer having problems with this cornfield, and the corn wasn't growing, and the students had to conduct an investigation as to why. Okay. Also, there are some examples, some situations out there, such as there was one called the Elizabethtown incident, which was a medical situation, so it was science-based, about kid going to the hospital with some stomach pains, and they had to remove part of his digestive system. So we had to look at the digestive system and how this affected the digestive system. Well, then the drugs they gave him for the pain affected the nervous system. So then you had to study about the nervous system and how it was affected by the drugs. And then that affected the respiratory system. So it's just kind of a chain. But when the students are involved like that, because they were taking on the role of the surgeons, but when they're involved like that, they internalize the material, and it takes on more meaning for them. That's just proven. Okay, and another way that we can implement inquiry into our classroom is through the use of Socratic circles. And this is just putting the kids in groups and having them hypothesize what-if situations or scenarios, and letting them build on their current knowledge. They have to build on that knowledge that's already there, and what if, and this is a great way to get the inquiry rolling. And so in my capstone project, I'm going to look at all of these things. I'm going to try to find some more activities that people can use, and how we can create these activities, and good grouping strategies for the classroom, so you know how to group your students. But thanks for your time. Peace. Hi, my name is Leslie, and for my